Hello and welcome to the Collapse Experiment. Today I'm talking about the books that I read in 2024. Why am I sharing this? Because I'm actually kind of surprised as to. Apparently, I read 24 books. If somebody had asked me like how many did you read in the last year, I wouldn't have said 10. But because I like to keep track of things on Goodreads, and looking back, I was like, oh yeah, I did read that one. So apparently, I read 24 books. It amounted to 7,061 pages of material. And the shortest book I read, is this still a book? It's called Operation Tropical Storm by Jake Adelstein. He's the guy that wrote Tokyo Vice, and the TV show was based on Tokyo Vice. And if you really want a good TV show to watch, you should watch Tokyo Vice. But 16 pages. And that was the story about the Yakuza guy who went to, I believe it was Hawaii, had a liver transplant. Even though he was a foreigner, he got bumped up the liver transplant list and went back to Japan. So it's all about that and some of the shenanigans involved in that. The longest book I read was Aberration in the Heartland of the Real, The Secret Lives of Timothy McVeigh. Very, very fascinating book. I highly suggest reading it. That clocked in at 720 pages. And the average book length for me was 294 pages. This included... So the most popular book that I read out of all of them was First Person Singular by Haruki Murakami, which is a collection of short stories, and 93,000 other people read it last year. Mini Farming was the least popular, with 16 other people clocking it in on Goodreads. What else do we have here? Oh, the only review that I wrote. Now, keep in mind this last year, 2024, was the year that my daughter really got into Pokemon, which meant that in order for me to have that connection and build those memories, I have to learn about Pokemon. So, I checked out a book called The Psychology of Pokemon. And it was edited. It was a collection of articles and essays. It was edited together into this one collected book. And at first, it was cool. I liked some of the articles that were in there. However, as my review here states, a collection of articles, good and bad. Why did they have to bring in non-binary Pokemon pronouns? I will never understand. Yeah, it went woke really quick. All of a sudden, Pokemon was being used as a political agenda, and it royally pissed me off. I'm like, out of all the crap that is happening these days, why do they have to bring it into this? Just leave the kid stuff alone. So in regards to some of the other books that I read, we have here a couple Joe R. Lansdale. We've got Rusty Puppy and Jack Rabbit Smile. Highly recommend his books. I love the Hap and Leonard stories. I love the TV show. Unfortunately, there's only 2 seasons, and there will only ever be 2 seasons because the guy that played Leonard is now gone. Omar's coming. Same actor. Yeah, okay. So we also have here Bubba Hotep. That was also by Joe R. Lansdale. Thinking back, yeah, I was reading a lot of that over the summer. A lot of Joe R. Lansdale. The Secret Life of Bill Clinton. If you can find that book, oh my God. Like, most of it has a lot to do with the Oklahoma City bombing. A ton of information in there just on that alone. And McKay didn't do it. And then you also have, I believe it was Vince Foster was also covered in this book, but incredible journalism. Like, it's one of those books, if you find it on the shelf somewhere because it is out of print, pick it up, because good Lord. Then we also have Program to Kill. Yeah, I did read that last year. Very, very... The whole book is Dave McGowan writing this thesis on how he thinks serial killers came to be in the United States. But it's only like a section of one paragraph where he really states his actual theory out of the blue in one of the final chapters. Because you're reading about all this horrific child bad stuff happening to them things. Then there's the serial killers, and then there's all this horrific stuff. And you're like, why is he flooding my brain with this? And then there's that moment of like, oh, okay, well, good thing I didn't stop before now. Otherwise, I would have just thought Dave McGowan was just one sick puppy. Hunker by Michael Perry. I do like Michael Perry's stuff. He's a really good, great essay writer. Haruki Murakami, The T-Shirts I Love. It was a fun read. Apparently somebody wanted him to write about his collection of T-shirts. And just like me, he tends to buy them at Goodwill. And there's a funny section where he starts complaining about, hey, used to buy these T-shirts for X amount of dollars. Why is the price going up? It's literally stuff handed to you for free. Why are you raising the price? Good on you, Murakami. Don DeLillo, The Silence. I believe that, I don't remember the story. It had to do more with they're on a plane trip and like all the cell phones go out and then they notice the power is out, or it had something to do with that. Very, very short book. Not a real big Don DeLillo fan with a lot of his stuff. Down and Out in Paradise, The Life of Anthony Bourdain by Charles Leerhesen. It's like Scandinavian or something. But that was a fascinating, well-written book. I highly recommend that one. Although I will say the hype kind of like quickly came and went. And it was during a time that there were quite a few Bourdain books that were coming out that was published. True North, Jim Harrison, very long read. One of his longer books, but it's also one of his few actual novels. And a lot of it takes place right where I live. Not in the actual house, just the area. So yeah, a lot of it in the UP, a lot of it in southern Michigan, the northern portion of southern Michigan. That's the better way to phrase it. John Krakauer, Where Men Win Glory, The Odyssey of Pat Tillman. They killed Pat. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah. The part that bugged me the most about this Pat Tillman book, and I got to throw this out there, because the more I think people learn about this, the better questions we can ask. They took his personal belongings, including his journal. They took his uniform off of his body, and they put it all in a pile and burned it, knowing that there was going to be an investigation into his death. They burned his journal. And the only reason we know what some of his journal said is because other people were he had read parts of it to guys in his unit. And so they were able to tell Krakauer, like, what Tillman was writing about. But there's also a lot of theories that Tillman was a little upset about all the poppy fields that were obviously supplying certain things happening in the United States that no one will ever be prosecuted for. Will Self, Why Read? That was a really cool collection of essays. I do like Will Self. I find him to be a very fascinating character. And his other book prior to this, simply called Will, check that out too. That was, I really like his writing style. He's very creative, very funny. Although it's like a dark funny. It's a dark humor when he is funny. I will have to throw that in there. In the Weeds. This is about the, was it the producer or the director? I want to say it was the producer for Anthony Bourdain. And some of the stories he tells, oh my God. So yeah, very interesting perspective from somebody on the sidelines of like what was happening with Anthony Bourdain's production of the TV shows. Haruki Murakami, Novelist as a Vocation. I went out and bought that one. Very interesting insight from his perspective on what it means, what it takes to be a novelist. And as for Murakami, you know, he's a guy that he put in the time and the effort, and, you know, he does this on the side from owning a bar, being a bartender as well, having all that responsibility, and then still going home and spending several hours working on books. He never knew whether or not they would be published. So, nice insight. I did like his book. It's on, I would say, it's on par in a way with On Writing by Stephen King, which is also a great book about being a writer. The Last Kids on Earth, I read that to my daughter. It's actually, for a kid's book, not bad. I will say that. Patriots, I read that again. The later books in the series by James Wesley Rawls were a hell of a lot better than this dry piece of garbage, but I wanted to give it another shot, and oh my God, is it dry. Mini farming, stuff I already knew, didn't really learn anything from that. And the last one that I gave 1 star because 0 stars was not available was Ramen Assassin, which pretty much sounded like a very similar plot to my book about an assassin called Top Ramen, but this is the gay version. There were things I did not need to details that could have. I didn't need to read this book. It's by Reyes Ford. And good Lord, like, people mention how my book had some sex in it, but this is dudes who are into dudes with dudes. I didn't finish it. No, I got like, I think maybe 20 pages into it, and I was like, I'm done with this. It would have been helpful to know this in the description. I will put it that way. So it's still on the list because with what I endured on the I'm like, is this going to get better? Is it always going to be like this? Is this all that this guy writes about? Is this? I can't even go into it. Oh my God. It was bad. It was so bad. I know there's degrees in gay lit. It's nothing I will ever work towards. Ever. Willingly. No. I could be in prison and the judge could be like, hey, if you just get a degree in gay literature. No. How much time am I doing? Okay, I guess I'll die here. Holy crap. Ugh. That left. That was. Pokemon was not as bad, and that was some woke agenda BS. The Pokemon book. No, this thing was, you know, for being about an assassin, it was pretty raunchy. Not a whole lot of assassinations going on. I'll say that. So anyways, these are the books that I read last year. And let's see here. homepage. I'm sure that it's going to have like the 2025 book challenge. So I'm going to set that because I'm hoping that you guys will help keep me motivated. If I read 24 last year, let's see here, 0 of 15 achievements collected. What is this for? I don't know. Set goal. How many books would you like to read this year? If I did 25, or 20, was it 24? Let's do 30. All right? That means I actually have to sit down and read some stuff just about every night. Of course, last time I did something like that, I got to 30 by like June, and then I had to like up it from there. But whatever. That was years ago. I had more free time. Plus, I was doing a lot of audiobooks. But I digress. Let's do 30. Okay. Goal is set. I have 0 books that I've read this year, starting from scratch. So I am also going to share, because my currently reading is usually, I clean this out. No, wait, that's red. Where is currently reading? I was going to say, I'm not currently reading that many. Okay, so currently I have The Last Huck, Huck, by J.D. Austin. I'm working on that. Nobody is Coming to Save You, a Green Beret's Guide to Getting Big Feces Done. That's by Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann, who also wrote Pineapple Express. Not the movie, the book about the Afghan withdrawal. 1Q84. I had to stop reading that because one of the characters was annoying the crap out of me, and it was just taking so long for things to happen. It was originally written as 3 books. Haruki Murakami published this in Japan as 3 different books in a series. And then when it came here, they were like, oh, Americans don't do that. We'll just throw it all into one. Because we like reading 1,000-page books. So yeah, I got about a third of the way into it. And I just needed to take a break. So I'm going to dive back into that. I know where I left off. I've got the bookmark in place. Another short one that I actually needed to finish was The Murder of Chris Kyle, an American Hero. And that had to do with a guy, it's actually nonfiction, written by a guy who actually sat every day in the courtroom watching the trial and logging everything that happened, the evidence presented. One I'm going to have to dig out and finish, Up in Arms, how the Bundy family hijacked federal lands, outfoxed the federal government, and ignited America's Patriot Militia movement. I was reading that for research on my Duncan Lemp book and never finished it because none of the militias that Lemp was known to work with were in the book. Fruit flies. So I'm actually going to have to go back and finish that because there was some fascinating stuff there. And one book I really need, I'm about halfway through this one, The Medusa File 2, The Politics of Terror and the Oklahoma City Bombing. I have a huge library of books about the Oklahoma City bombing, well over a dozen. Okay, so there's actually only like 1 or 2 more that I might ever buy on that topic. And my intent is to read them all, in my mind, figure out what really happened, because if you've ever read Wendy Painting's book, you'll realize that the whole story that the government came out with was BS. So that's my intent, is to actually read all of this stuff, kind of come together a story that I think actually happened, and then write that as a novel. That is years in the making. So these are the books that I'm currently working on right now. 30 for the rest of the year, and hopefully start making some dents in this stuff. So that's it for me today. That was my books for 2024, the end of the year roundup. What did you read? What did you enjoy? What do you recommend? Let me know in the comment section. Share with everybody else. Keep on time.